Okay, Jackie.
All right. Welcome to the 17th/18th of May meeting. This is going to be a fun one. It will be very unique because we don't have any prepared speeches. And I think that Christina and Lloyd have some fun things in store for us. I forgot about the flag. Does anybody have a flag they could run and get? Looks like
You have your
Christina.
flag, Kathleen?
I can go get it. It's on my deck.
Ah. I apologize for not asking earlier.
I didn't think about it.
Nope, I didn't. You were seeing my hotel room in London. Perfect. All right, I'll pass it to you, Kathleen.
Thank you. If everyone would mute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lovely, thank you. And who's our Toastmaster for tonight? Eric, that's right. Eric, I will pass it on to you.
Thank you, El Presidente. Name of the meeting is Glass Half Full. Okay. I am a glass guy, and I think this group generally is too. We have a call for a joke of the day. Does anybody have a joke of the day? That no joke of the day? Barbara.
Sorry. So at work, we have been putting up a joke of the day. This was today's joke. So my weekend, I went to the beach with my dog Shark. It didn't go well. That qualifies as a dad joke, it might be, but
Little sophisticated librarian humor there.
I like it. Since we've got a bevy of time, I've got a joke too, a little Johnny joke. The teacher asked, can you hear me all right, you guys?
Mhm.
Teacher asked the class to use the word fascinate in a sentence. Molly put up her hand and said, my family went to my granddad's farm. We saw his pet sheep. It was fascinating. The teacher said, that was good, but I wanted you to use the word fascinate, not fascinating. Sally raised her hand. She said, my family went to see Rock City and I was fascinated. The teacher said, well, that was good, Sally, but I wanted you to use the word fascinate. Little Johnny raised his hand. The teacher hesitated because she had been burned by Johnny. I decided there was no way he could damage the word fascinate. So she called on him. Johnny said, my Aunt Debbie has a sweater with 10 buttons, but her chest is so big she can only fasten 8.
Oh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
The teacher sat down and cried.
I had a joke here somewhere, but I lost it. So next week.
Well, you got time to find it.
Oh, I
With
did.
that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our general evaluator, Steve Schwind.
Thank you so much. In every meeting, we strive for excellence, and with the various roles, we work at observing everyone's performances and actions and making recommendations based on what we see as shortcomings or applaud them for positive accomplishments that they may have. And my job is to oversee the entire meeting and observe those pluses and minuses and to make a final comment about it at the end of the meeting. In addition to my general role, I have a team of assistant evaluators, the first of which is our timer, Barbara, who is going to tell us about her role.
This is a new role to me, brand new. So greetings, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. As timer, I will time the table topics, speakers, formal speeches, and the evaluations. I will also alert each speaker of the time they have left using the green, my fancy paper plates, green, yellow, and red. And if I get selected for this next time, I'll have something a little more sophisticated, which denotes the specific time remaining. Table topic speakers should limit their remarks to no more than 2 minutes. At 1 minute, I will raise the green card. At 1 minute and 30 seconds, I will raise the yellow card. And at 2 minutes, I will raise the red card. Those giving speeches should limit their remarks to their specific speech times. The individual evaluations should be between 2 to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, I will raise the green card. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I will raise the yellow card. And at 3 minutes, I will raise the red card. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Back to you. Did I miss something?
Thank you.
No,
Our second evaluator is grammarian, and tonight that is Pat Whitfield. Pat, would you tell us about your role?
Surely, my primary role will be listening for both use and abuse of the English language. On the use side, I'll be looking for wonderful phraseology, fascinating words and such. On the abuse side, mispronunciations, misuse, etc. And the other part of my job is to establish the word of the day. And since our theme was the glass half full, I chose a word of the day that's related to glass. And the word of the day is crystalline, crystalline. And crystalline is any of, excuse me, pertaining to or made of crystal, resembling crystal, and transparent, which I thought had a better connection to the theme of the day. Thank you.
Our final evaluator is our counter, who will fill us in with her duties. And that's Kathleen. Would you share with us, please?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. My job today is to count our crutch and filler words, those things that we all use, but try so hard to avoid. Words such as well, so, and. Not really words, sounds. That is my job for tonight.
Great. The evaluators' roles are intended to help everyone, and we hope nobody's crystalline ego shatters under the load of critical evaluations. With that, I will give it back to our Toastmaster, Eric Sepper.
Thank you, General Evaluator. I would like to hear an impromptu speech, and that is the journey of Jackie in this speech contest season. And it doesn't need to be a speech, but just regale us with your story.
I didn't realize it was going to be a speech. I thought it was going to be an interview.
There you go.
Oh, hang on just a second. My just a second. My white noise machine stopped. I need to plug it in. Hold, please. one of the important things you need in a hotel room when you have a puppy is sound machine. All right. So it's going to be a speech about my journey. Here's the funny thing. If I do end up going further to the semifinals, I will probably be the only one who's given 3 in-person speeches in Toastmasters and got that far. Because so much of my speaking has been done on Zoom. I think at this point I've given close to 50 speeches over Zoom since last July, if you include all the practice speeches for my contest. And I feel like it's been a real benefit, especially as Lloyd and I have been talking about it. There's a huge difference in speaking on Zoom and speaking in person. And I feel like it has played to my advantage to have a club where y'all let me speak so much. And it really prepared me to be able to win that district contest. Hayden or Eric or anybody?
So why do you think it's an advantage now with Zoom?
I think because it's a year where everything is on Zoom, I feel like it has been an advantage for me to be in this club where I've gotten to speak so much over Zoom.
Yes.
Because if you, no, go ahead.
So if Zoom, oh, it just flew out of my mind. Anybody else have a question? Kathleen?
I have thought that Zoom is more comfortable than in person. And this hit home to me, my last speech, because I couldn't find myself to see myself. And it made me realize that I'm very dependent on looking at myself, and I like looking at myself. It helps me gauge my facial reactions, and I can see any movements I've planned and know whether they're good or not. I'm thinking it's going to be a hard transition back to standing up in a room without that immediate feedback.
That's very interesting because it is immediate feedback and you can make adjustments right there as you're going. I can see where that would be. Your last speech, it was recorded and you sent it in. Now, if you keep going on, do you have to give it live again or how does that work?
So the video gets submitted to regionals. So we are region 1, and judges behind the scenes will review all the videos that they get. There are 9 districts in our region. So they'll review all 9 videos, and then the top 2 they will go on to the World Championships of Public Speaking, and that will be the semifinals, and that will be 27. So there are 120 districts in the world that get narrowed down to, 120 districts. So 120 competitors win district, then it gets narrowed down to 27. And I believe that for the semifinals, they're broken down into 7 groups of 4. And then you have to win your group in order to go on to the finals. And then on the night of the finals, there are 7 competitors.
But is that next level a tape too, the same tape?
No.
Yes, it's the same tape as the other night. So they take what everyone did to win district, and that's what they're looking at.
And you don't have a chance to retape it. That's the way it goes.
Or
That's the way it
Jackie,
goes.
you might want to check that because last year the semifinals were, I mean, they were live, although they were on Zoom.
Right.
And then, so there were people who gave different speeches in the semifinals than they did for their district.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But for the final round, you have to have a different speech than what the semifinal speech was 2 days earlier. You know, so, but so the recording from Saturday really matters for region, but I don't think it'll matter for the semifinal.
Yeah. Although if I am selected to go on, I will do this same speech because I feel good about it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to change it. You can if you want. Is that true?
Correct.
Steve? Oh, really?
But
Okay.
if she wins her semifinal round, she has to have a completely different speech, different concept, different everything from the semifinal speech.
You have a second speech, Jackie, that you're practicing?
I have just started thinking about it and was talking with my speaking group today about kind of a concept for it, as far as what I want the message to be. I think I want to explore the idea of when things get hard in your life or you're presented with opportunities, do you see them, well, this is the glass half full thing. Do you see it as an opportunity to expand, or do you see it as an opportunity to contract? And a perfect example of that is what has happened with a lot of Toastmaster clubs. They've gotten on Zoom. So many of them have shrunk and contracted because so many people decide, I don't want to be on Zoom. Well, what I've been able to do because of this group, I was like, oh, somebody has a cute puppy. Oh, that's my puppy. What I've been able to do because of this group is I have dramatically improved my speaking over the past year and over Zoom because of the possibility of speaking more. And for instance, my speaking coach, he has been able to speak to Toastmasters groups all across Europe and in Australia, New Zealand. That's something that he couldn't have done because it wouldn't really be feasible to do, unpaid speeches so much. So you can either take that opportunity to expand, or you can just shut down and completely contract and get smaller in that instance. So that's the message, and I'm looking through my life to figure out which stories I want to go with that, which is, I guess, kind of a different way to look at it than I have before. But as Lloyd said, it has to be different content. And I didn't realize until he sent this in an email to me, no elements can be the same. Like, because I talked about Tyrion, I can't include Tyrion in my speech. I can't talk about my abusive ex-husband because I included that. There are all of the elements in my speech. I can't have any that are the same.
Wow.
So that.
So what is the timing? What is the timing like for the finals? When's that day going to be? What's the date?
It's the International Convention. I think that's August 20 something.
Okay. So you keep going, you have lots of time to practice the second speech then.
Yes. It's interesting that you're asking about that, Eric, because in the competitors room ahead of time, Roy, one of the other competitors, I said something in a British accent and he said, oh, you should use that for your whole speech. I'd pay to see that. And I said, oh, okay, Roy, just because you said that, I'm going to rewrite my whole speech now. and I was joking, but Mike said there was a gentleman the year he went to semifinals and he didn't think he was going to win. He didn't think he was going to win. Sorry, I threw a gun in there. He didn't think he was going to win. And he did. So the night between semifinals and finals, he spent the whole night writing his speech, talking with his speech coach in India. He wrote a speech, memorized it, and then he ended up winning the whole thing. And you know what I thought? Lloyd would be horrified.
As you're going through now and you're doing the same speech, and of course you're changing it subtly and that kind of things, do you have this thing memorized, or is it chunks that you're going through? What's your style evolved into?
You know, it's interesting because I almost never write my speeches. I might write down some ideas, but oftentimes what I'll do is I'll take my phone and I'll open up the voice memos and I'll just record it. And I will look back at the different pieces and see something I might want to shorten or that type of a thing. But at a certain point, I think it was after, it might have been after division, because I changed my speech. I was talking with Lloyd about it, and we decided that it would be a good idea for me to transcribe what I had done. And that was helpful for me in that when I was getting feedback in different areas, I could take the feedback, transcribe it, put it at the top, and figure out which chunk I wanted to do. And if I wanted to reorganize things, copy and paste and move it around. So there were certain elements that stayed the same every time. Once I got the Megan thing and those 4 words coming in, that was something that stayed relatively the same. There were certain elements though that I changed around and worked on. For instance, who is it? I think it was Christina that had mentioned at the beginning, because I had the whole thing going through security. She mentioned to me, I don't think you need that. You can shorten that and focus on some other more important things. So feedback like that, it was perfect, because then I was able to just kind of take that out and say, okay, what else can I put in other areas? So it was a very fluid type of a way to do it. But I liked that because every time I gave it, I was taking in the feedback. And I really have learned through this process, one of the biggest things I've learned is the importance of feedback, and how often in the moment I get defensive about the feedback. Well, that's a good part. Like, why would you say that? But if I record the feedback and go back and look at it and listen to it later when I'm in a mode where I can take it in, I can say, oh yeah, that part doesn't really serve the story. That doesn't make it go forward in any way. So even though I like it, I'm going to take it out, or I'm going to shorten it, and not being super precious with any element of it or super attached. Because I feel like when you're super attached to something, then you're not able to flex and grow and make it better.
It's a good primer for all of us to hear.
Yeah.
We are very blessed in this club to have a debate coach, Lloyd, because he's taped all of these, even when we were in person, and it's very helpful. You can see and make adjustments, and you may get feedback that's written and you go, I don't do that. Well, you watch it and you can tell whether you are or not.
You
What
know,
is that? Go ahead, Lloyd.
It's interesting what Jackie just mentioned. There were 4 other people who I've been helping in this contest, 3 of them in District 9 and 1 guy who lives in the Chicago suburbs. Well, the problem is Jackie was the only one who did not fall in love with her words. In other words, if something needs to be changed, you change it. The others all fell in love with their words and they're gone. So you just have to make new ones if the old ones don't work. It's not that big a deal.
And I think, sorry, Eric, I was along with that, being flexible in the moment, that if you say something different than you intended to say, that is absolutely okay. That's totally fine. And that is you in the moment, just channeling what needed to be said. I mean, without sounding woo-woo, it's like your mind, you know what to say. And there's certain elements that I've done enough that they are the exact same every single time. But if I did get the feedback that you might change something, for instance, Pat told me in one of her examples of feedback, because I was saying Megan was reticent to talk to me. And she said, I think the word you want is reluctant to talk to me. Yeah. So I took that word and I changed it. And then every time I gave the speech after that, I remembered, okay, reluctant, not reticent. So I think it's not having it memorized exactly, but having the important parts that you want to say be the same because you've said them so many times, and then just letting yourself play with other elements.
This whole process from stem to stern, what's been the most challenging thing?
That's a great question. I think the most challenging thing has been, because I've done so many different speeches throughout Pathways, this is the first time where I have stayed with a speech for this long. And that whole process is something new to me, and it's something I've had to adapt to. But I feel like it's also important, because if I stayed with that exact same speech and, like Lloyd just said, fell in love with my words, it would be a static thing. It would be boring. And I've done a lot of acting, and with that, you memorize a script. It's exactly what you say. So it's not that I can't memorize. I could totally do that. But it's the idea of what best serves the story and what best serves my audience. And again, along with that, not being precious with those elements that, in the feedback I'm getting, people are telling me that doesn't really help the audience. That's all about you. That's just you wanting to say something. And Lloyd told me with my first speech, that's what that ended up being. I guess one thing that was a little tricky for me was making the decision to go ahead and change my speech 2 weeks before division. And it just, I wasn't resonating as much as I thought I should be with my first speech. And it's actually funny how this one started. So my speaking group that I meet with on Zoom every single day, sometimes it's in the morning, and I'm not a huge morning person. So sometimes I'll go on and I'll be what they call pillow Jackie. I have my phone in Zoom and I have my head on the pillow. And oftentimes we will just share stories in our story bank, and just 2 or 3 minutes. So this one, right after I came back from Colorado, because the story of my speech, it happened last month. I gave that story in about 3 minutes, pretty much right after I'd woken up from sleep. And later I thought about it and I thought, that has something. That has something that can maybe be fleshed out and have a really great message. So then I went back and I listened, because I recorded myself on my phone in that moment, and I listened to it and I played around with it a little bit, and I decided to give it just as a trial run at our club, just to see what the reaction would be. And I said, Lloyd, I'm thinking about changing the speech. What do you think? And he said, well, you're right at the line. So if you're going to change it now. And I gave the speech, and his advice was great. It was, okay, go for it with this new speech. So I think changing it at the very last minute, before 2 weeks, a week and a half before division, was something that was a little bit of a gamble. It was a difficult decision, but it was the right one.
I think, Jackie, your whole life is a speech pad.
My whole life is a what?
Speech pad. You got all kinds of speeches in there, nuggets and things that can just be expanded. You're never going to run out of speeches. Just live your life.
Yep, that's true. I actually have a story bank. It has around 97 stories, I think. It's just in my to-do list in my my app. So here's what I do. And I guess this is kind of my version of what Lloyd does when he clips his articles and keeps them in a file. Whenever I'm talking to someone and a memory comes up and I tell them a story, if I think it's worthwhile, I will just put a little sentence about it in my story bank. So that way I can go back and I can expand on that story. And we all have so many things that can be made into speeches, into messages. They don't have to be this huge, crazy, I got out of Vietnam. And I mean, it doesn't have to be life shattering to be worthwhile for your audience. But I'm realizing you have to be thinking about your audience and what's of
Jackie,
value to them.
as I've been listening to this, it just strikes me that we all have our gifts. You know, my thing is art, and I have a little bit of a propensity for that. I believe everybody can accomplish anything that they commit themselves to doing, but your rise in the club, in your speaking skills, there's a natural gift that you have in there. But as I think about it, when I've watched you giving your speeches, you get pretty jacked. What does it feel like inside when you're speaking, and when you, especially when you hit the home run? Do you have a little fire in there that bursts into a brighter flame when you're speaking and when you accomplish your speaking goal?
That's a great question. And I love the way you put it. And thank you for those kind words. It feels like I'm on a high when I'm speaking and when I'm connecting with people. And it's different over Zoom. I feel like there's even more of a connection when I'm in person. And I did give this speech to my family in person before district because I wanted to see if it would be different in person. And it was a whole different feel where you're not constricted to this little screen. You're able to look at people, and there's a different way of thinking through it, but there's also this different energy because you can look at them and you can see them smiling, or you can see them on the edge of their seat. There's this energy exchange that is just magical. And the first speech that I gave was before I joined Toastmasters. I did a speaking mastermind, and we had 2 retreats, and I gave a speech at the first one. And I remember being really nervous about it, but in that moment, I was like, this is it. I love every single second about it. Just being able to use my acting background and my writing, because I have a journalism degree. I don't know if I've mentioned that ever, but communication studies with an emphasis in journalism. Being able to combine all of those things and my singing, just in that moment where you have people on the edge of their seats and they're with you and you're connecting with them, there's something magical about that. And when I gave that first speech and I got done, I was like, this is it. This is what I was born to do. It goes beyond, okay, I'm getting over my fear of speaking, to, wow, this is fun. And it's fun for me. And I think when I go back to speaking in person, I'm actually working on my speaking website right now. I have been for a little while, and hopefully end up getting booked for paid speeches. I'll be able to take that with me. And I feel like the energy is just going to be ramped up through the ceiling for me because I'm used to a Zoom box. And if I can, get that energy and that excitement over Zoom, in person, I feel like it's going to be a whole nother level.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I can appreciate the Zoom thing. I think about newscasters staring at a camera and making you feel like they're talking to you is an amazing accomplishment or gift or
It is.
ability. But to have someone looking back and giving you feedback definitely generates energy.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're truly resonating with you, it just fuels your fire.
It does. And you know what? It's funny. Some of you who are not at the contest may not know this, but the Toastmaster forgot to mute herself. And while I was giving my speech, when I leaned in and I said those 4 words, "When are you due?" I heard her say, "Oh no." And I had pinned myself so she didn't flash on my screen, but apparently for everybody else in the video, she flashed in the screen. And I thought, I'm really glad I pinned myself. And in that moment, I could have gotten really messed up, but my thought was, hey, somebody's listening.
That was,
Well,
that
there's
was,
that.
that was Nancy Shadow, who knows better. She just screwed up. And when I heard her kind of chuckling at the start, I picked up my phone and I started texting her, mute yourself. But she did before I could, push the send button. But yeah, there was a black screen flashed and then it went away. And that could have been a disaster.
And yet it was a beautiful thing.
Well, not in terms of making a recording that fit the rules for the recording that has to be sent on.
But for giving energy to Jackie.
Yeah.
Maybe it sounded like.
Yeah.
But that's not, Lloyd, do you think that's not something that would disqualify
No,
me? to be
it
the
was a
top
split second.
Okay.
So it's not going to matter.
Okay.
Jackie, thanks for coming tonight and participating in this fireside chat. Anybody else have any questions for Jackie? All right, this time we're going to turn the meeting over to our Table Topics Master, Christina.
Wow.
You wanna turn it over? We have about 4 minutes, so why don't we do this? Why don't we carry this over to next meeting?
Okay. So Christina, you're going to be Table Topics Master next time with the same theme. Okay.
Okay.
Is that what you
And
want?
Lloyd, I have a question for you. The whole nation's opening up now with COVID. Is there any remote possibility that we'll have a live contest in August?
A live what?
Contest in August.
Oh, no. Toastmasters is already committed to doing the whole thing online because it usually takes 2 years to plan an international conference. And so they didn't plan for this year. There's nowhere to go. I mean, even if they wanted to.
Yeah.
See, Jackie's audience at the international convention, if she made the finals in a live audience, would be 2,000 people. I mean, it's a big conference. So no, it's all going to be online. However, it's all going to be free. And if Jackie's in the semifinals or finals, we'll be able to watch her as she does her speech.
My question then would be, how close are we to meeting as a club?
Who knows?
Kathleen,
I know. We're looking into hybrid meetings. Pat's on a little group with me and Selena and Dean.
Mhm.
We've narrowed it down to 2 options, the Link Transit Center where they have the right technology. There are some other downsides to it. The other option, it turns out, is that the church does have Wi-Fi. It's cell coverage that they have terrible service. We haven't used their Wi-Fi.
and you have been in contact with the church?
Yes, it turns out Selena goes there.
Really? Wow.
So she contacted them. But the thing about the church is that at least 2 weeks ago, they weren't allowing groups in yet.
Right.
But it probably will be very imminent that they'll allow groups in.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for you and your compadres for doing that work. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Our goal is to visit those 2 spots, do a little practice with Dean in his faraway spot, then have our first hybrid meeting in June.
Yeah. That appears to be the worldwide trend for Toastmasters. It looks like most clubs are going to transition to a hybrid model for at least a while, because there's still a whole bunch of places in the world where they can't meet. Like there's no way clubs in India are going to be meeting live or hybrid, actually. you know.
Well, maybe if Jay Inslee goes there and helps them, it would improve things.
All right, let's,
Just kidding. Just kidding.
You know
You
what?
don't-
My UK club is starting to meet June 21st, and they are doing hybrid meetings.
I don't know what kind of an evaluation process you have, Steve, but I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Eric. We have, I'm gonna just, no, what am I gonna do here? Can we have the timers report? Barbara?
There is nothing to report.
Oh,
Ooh,
right.
excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. That was timely. Then we'll go to our grammarians report. Pat, how did everyone do? Was there any broken glass in the room?
Well, first of all, crystalline was used only once, and that was by Steve. In terms of language, there were some lovely phrases used. At the very beginning of her speech, Jackie called us y'all, and that took me back to the 8 years I spent in Arkansas, because when I left Arkansas, when I speak to groups, I'll often say, y'all do this or y'all do that, because it's so convenient. I found that really charming. She corrected herself when she said gonna and changed it to going to. Some of the ways she described her experiences, she said it was a fluid way to do that. And when I think about her speeches, especially as that particular speech has evolved, it was fluid. I like the way she used the word, well, it wasn't being super precious. That was a really interesting way to identify the feelings associated with that. And she also talked about, well, without sounding woo-woo, and how often do we hear that? So the only suggestion I would make is, when one comes to consciousness in the morning, it's not that we were woken up. It's I woke up or I awakened, not I was woken up. But you had so many lovely phrases. It was really a delight. Eric used a phrase that was very nice too. He talked about wanting to know the process from stem to stern. That really encapsulated from beginning to end, from stem to stern. Haven't heard that in a long time. I thought Steve, when he talked about the timers report, was timely. I really had to laugh because I thought that was an interesting use of the word. And Lloyd's terminology of the speakers fell in love with their words. That's the first time I've heard that term used, and it was very enlightening. Other than that, everyone was just elegant, no problems, good language flow, lovely use of phrases that I've already mentioned. This was a fun evening to be the grammarian, even though my feelings are hurt that only one person used the word. Okay.
Better than no people. Thank you, Pat. Nice synopsis. So it was good. You done real good. And now Barbara will tell us how everything went with and ums. Kathleen, Barbara, how did I get back to you?
Or Barbara thought she was really on the hook suddenly.
Kathleen, why don't you take that job on? Sorry. I'm
Thank
drifting
you,
a little.
Mr. General Evaluator. Let me expand on my crystalline thoughts. Unfortunately, Jackie did most of the speaking, and therefore, whoever has the most speaking role usually has the most ums and ahs. I am not going to report numbers. The thing that I would note though about Jackie, it happens to me, I can get through a meeting here without a but as soon as I walk out into the kitchen, everything starts with well. Jackie speaking extemporaneously, you end up with more of that natural speaking. There were quite a few so's, etc. Let's think about other folks though. Eric, nice job. 2 so's, a but, a now, and an and. Barbara, 2 so's and 1 repeat. Steve, nice job. 2 buts, 1 repeat, 1 you know. Pat, good job. 1 1 well, 1 so. Lloyd, 1 1 well, 1 so, 1 repeat. Christina, I didn't mark you for anything. I had something, I believe it was a then. It was an extending sentence. That's what I have for you, Mr. General Evaluator. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a suggestion. Stay out of the kitchen.
That's where the wine is.
Well, have them bring it in. I thought this was a very great meeting tonight. We had to do a little fancy footwork right at the beginning to fill a role, and we always have willing participants. Thank you, Barbara, for jumping in. And everyone stayed positive and moved along as always. We found our flag and did our Pledge of Allegiance, which sometimes I wonder, does that become rather a rote act, or do we really stop and think about everything behind that? Just a thought for you to take away from the meeting. The conversational flavor tonight was an awesome thing. And I haven't really stopped to think about it until it happened tonight, that we fed upon ourselves to find energy and information and expand our horizons on speaking. I'm sure everyone walked out of here with a nugget tonight from this conversation. I thought it was a great thing, and I might be something to think about on like maybe a quarterly basis. Maybe we say, let's just have a little free-for-all conversation and discuss things that are going on. And we'll look forward to that as soon as Jackie gets done winning her next competition. I thought it was a wonderful meeting. I thought everyone did very well, except me and my couple of faux pas. I can't remember what they were. I just know I made them. And with that, I will turn the meeting over to Lloyd, or Jackie, excuse me. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Steve. You were the glue through this whole thing. And Eric, you and Eric were the glue. We have a little bit of extra time. Oh, Kathleen, yeah.
May I ask a question, probably of Lloyd? I'm going to do a speech next week about a project or projects or something along those lines, and it's not going to exactly fit in the Toastmaster list of things you're supposed to do. That's not an issue, is it?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
That's an interesting thought. That's an interesting thought that you just brought up, because I was thinking that I've kind of got bogged down in my pathway. And I was thinking like, well, why don't I just do a speech on something else then? Because I feel like it. Nobody will electrocute me, I'm pretty sure.
No, you know, if you give it a little bit of thought, though, it's usually possible to figure out how to make a speech work in the pathways thing. They're content neutral. And most of us who speak a lot, I'm sure this is true of Jackie, it's true of me, it's true of Mary. We've done lots of things just like that. There's something we wanted to talk about, well, we just figured out where to fit it in, and it works. It can be done.
And also, Steve, one thing that I have done is if there's one speech that I am a little reluctant to do. I can use both of them, Pat. Yes, probably right there. I will just jump to another level and do a different one, because you can bank pretty much anything except for your reflect on your speech. I wouldn't think you can bank that. But sometimes I've done that. I'll go ahead, because if I am feeling stuck, and I have felt that sometimes, I will just jump ahead.
Mhm.
So
That's
that might,
interesting. I thought you had to finish a speech before you could look at the next one. I haven't obviously spent enough time in there.
No.
yeah, it's helpful, because then it frees you up to do whatever you feel like doing,
Yeah.
which is the point, right? The point is to keep speaking.
Jackie, before we go, there are two other important things that happened at the conference that we should talk about. One of them was that Vicky was elected district director. And that makes her, like, I guess you'd say, the CEO of District 9. Is what it amounts to. That's a big deal. And that is a first for the club. I know that for a fact. So it's a very cool thing. The other thing that happened was, and this kind of relates to contest speaking, when you're doing, there's contest speaking, you're trying to do two things at the same time. You're trying to give a really good speech that moves people, but you're also trying to win a game. And those don't always work perfectly together. I ended up judging the humorous speech contest Friday night, because one of the judges crapped out about 2 hours before the contest, and Mike Anthony called and asked if I'd do it. So I told him, yeah. Well, the guy violated a rule. There's a rule that says you can't refer to anybody else's speech in your speech. And that rule's been in the books 2 years. The guy violated it. So when he was done, judges and speakers are the only two who can lodge protests. So I lodged a protest, and the guy got DQ'd. He was irate. That was the Roy Jones that you were talking about. He had a stupid speech. He wasn't going to win anyway. But nonetheless, he violated a clear rule, and he claimed, he said, I don't believe that's a rule, but even if it is, I didn't do it. And even if I did it, it only applies to the international contest. Well, no. I've had high school students who were better at rationalizing themselves than he was. The point is that you really do need to know the requirements and the rules and whatnot. And that's not just true in the contest, but in the regular speaking too. And that's why we've all heard people, at a meeting or something, they're supposed to have 5 minutes and they take 20. Well, come on, if somebody told you in advance to have 5 minutes, then you got to cut it back. But anyway, it was a good conference. I was really happy to see Vicky get elected. That's a big deal.
Yay, Vicky. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Lloyd, one thing, and I just said one thing that I've been a little remiss in getting together is our talking about our nominations for club officer roles for the next year. So that's something we probably want to be thinking about.
Yeah. We're supposed to do it by the end of May, but in reality, it's the end of June.
Okay.
We're always fashionably late in this group. So.
Well, if anybody is interested in doing any of the roles, please let me know. We have, I don't know if I can go get all of them. We've got president, VPE, which is what Lloyd does. We've got the treasurer, the secretary, sergeant at arms, vice president of public relations,
and membership.
Yeah. Yes. So we've got all those roles that we need to fill, and maybe just be thinking about if you would be willing to jump on board.
There's also an opportunity for district level leadership. Area A1 needs a director. I'll be leaving that spot at the end of June. So that's a possibility. And since I'm supposed to recommend my replacement and Vicky gets to make the appointment, I suspect if somebody from this club wanted to do it, that it would most likely happen. Like I'm about
and along
99.
with that, sorry, I was just going to say, along with that, that's something that helps you get towards your DTM.
Yeah.
So if anybody is thinking about getting their DTM or working towards that, that would be great.
The downside is you're not eligible for the speech contest if you do it, but that's the way it goes.
Yes. Good stuff.
It's been fun. I gotta run.
Yep.
It has been
Thank you,
fun.
Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Now, next week, then, we're going to use the same theme. Christina's going to be table topics master. We're not going to run over our time. On the other hand, Eric, that was a really good interview process that you conducted. So I think it was really good. Well done.
Actually, the interview process was a suggestion of my wife.
Uh-huh. Who did not want to do 40 minutes of table topics.
Sorry, Christina. I stole your table topics time.
Very worthwhile hearing
Yeah, it was.
you share. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Hi, guys.
Have a good
Pleasure.
week, guys.
Bye. I'll
Congratulations
see you on
again,
the-
Jackie.